Welcome back, everyone, to our Leaders of Inclusive Childcare podcast series, brought to you by CanAssist at the University of Victoria and the Ministry of Education and Childcare. Today's episode is part 2 of Leading Community Connections with Wendy Kenward. We are joining you today from the traditional territories of the Lekwungen and Wasanik peoples and are grateful to work and play on this land as uninvited guests. I like that you alluded to the fact that first impression of walking through the door, that is a pretty big deal, and kind of going with your immediate instincts. I remember my colleague and I we were traveling across BC last year to go to different programs, and it was really interesting to see the different dynamics walking into these programs and like the immediate feeling that you get when you walk in. And I really like how you mentioned, are the staff happy? I think that is something that is so key. And I actually didn't even notice when I would walk into a center previously, but now I do notice those things. And it's not to say that, when you walk in, everything has to be perfect, but are the staff communicating with each other? Are they smiling, laughing? Even if there's a hectic situation that arises when you are visiting, is it being dealt with in a way that is inclusive and kind and loving? And I think that's so important. That immediate reaction that you feel when you walk into a space is so important.
And I think that if children come up to you and ask you who you are, right? Hey, who are you? Are you someone's mummy? That sense of comfort level of the children, that'll give you right away. This is their home. They're coming up and see who's coming to visit my house.
Shifting gears a little bit from families to just the community more generally. So talking about aunts, uncles, all types of people in the family, knowledge keepers, SCD, ASCD consultants, everyone that comes into a program is involved in the community. How do you like to involve people, or how have you done it before, involving the community in the program and making it feel like it's their home too?
I think one of the most impactful presentations that shifted my thinking around this was when Monique Grace Smith talked about the idea of that, like, gradual entry wasn't just the little child, it was the little child and 20 family members.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, that would be so intense, but also so great, right? Because then the family is part of the bigger unit. I think it's really important to have family and extended family, aunties and elders and all the rest of our community folks included and involved. I also recognize that sometimes we inadvertently might pressure families to be there and be part of that when they can't. And so there's a fine balance. Having said that, the ways that we connect community in again is building that relational field is really just calling auntie or the elder up and saying, hey, would you like to come in this afternoon? We're having tea. No pressure, right? No expectation. When I worked on helping design or just consulting on a childcare space for an Indigenous Head Start program, and they were developing the outside playground. And it was quite a large space. And so as we're building the bike path that went around and around, there were benches put in the place all the way around the path so elders could sit, right, and greet the children as they rode by, or they could sit and watch them playing in the sandbox. So our spaces, as much as they're child-friendly, also have to have opportunities for adults to be invited and welcomed in. Often elders will join into a program and not necessarily understand what their role, or not that they don't understand, but they need to know what their role is. Elders need to know if they're being invited in, not just come in and do whatever. Give them a purpose for being there. Like, we really want you to come in and share singing with the children, or we're doing some crafts and thought you might like to come and join us, or we're making jam or canning salmon, but having a purpose for them to connect in. And I think it's that intentionality of the relationships that make it work. I was visiting a center recently, and they have a patriarch program that's run by one of their elders, where this elder brings the fathers and grandfathers and uncles, and they do things like hunting and gathering and fishing, and then they provide things back to the childcare program. So they'll go and catch the salmon, and then they'll bring them to the daycare, and then the daycare will process the salmon and can the salmon with the children, but then also send salmon home, have salmon for the children to eat. And so this is a connection and community, right, where this has been built between the childcare program and this father's program. There's some intentionality, right? There's a relationship building first, but then there's this direct, hey, why don't we partner and do this together? Like, this is how we can contribute to that collective being. And like, I'm not Indigenous, but in the Indigenous community that I live and work in, there's a different way of looking at that, right? This is part of how we all take care of each other and really aligns with my value system. It's not, oh, we bought salmon. Do you want some? It's like, okay, we're going to go fishing. And how are we going to support the community now with the fish? And there's a plan and there's intentionality and mindfulness. I think in terms of mainstream and when we're looking at involving families, again, it's that balance so families don't feel burdened, but also reaching out and making those invitations mindfully again so families come in the door, feel welcomed. I think COVID kind of wrecked that a little bit for us. A lot of families and a lot of my programs still talk about, well, we have to stand at the door and sign in outside, and we don't go beyond cubbies because people are worried it's flu season, blah, blah, blah. I understand the health and safety piece, but this is their home, right? Any germs that the parents have, the children are going to be exposed to anyways. So like, how do we make that welcoming and not artificial, like really authentically?
And I like how you mentioned that, when you invite elders in specifically too, to ask them to do a task instead of just kind of bringing them in for the sake of having them there. And I do think that kind of goes for almost everyone when you're asking people to come in. I think a lot of times families can feel intimidated going into a space, especially there are people that have experienced trauma in spaces that are childcare or in schools. And so inviting them in and maybe giving them a specific task is a great idea. So they don't just think they're coming in and going to sit around. Also, the COVID has really kind of amplified a lot of things, including the fact that people are running low on time. They're running low on energy. They're feeling very burnt out. And it is something that COVID exacerbated, this feeling of burnout. And so when we talk about bringing people in and making them feel included, how do we go about doing that when there are so many people, including staff, including us as leaders, families are so burnt out and don't have a ton of time?
I think there's two things there for me, and I'm going to see if I can unpack this for you. One is, I just want to go back a bit and say, like, it's not necessarily about giving them a task. It's about, through a relationship with that person, identifying what their purpose would be to come. It might be that they're just going to sit there and be in the room with the children, and the children will gravitate to them and bring 1,000 books and stuffies and Legos and you name it, right? It'll happen. Oh, you're new. I'm going to just jump on your lap and we're going to read a story, right? and they'll know the children because they'll know it's so-and-so's auntie, or they'll know, oh, that's the elder. They know each other. So I think it's not necessarily about delegating tasks, because I worry that, even when I gave the example of the parents that came in to do those volunteer pieces, it's not like, oh, well, you can come to the center, but you have to clean toys, right? It's about asking that parent how they want to be a part of the classroom. For me, it's a different approach philosophically. It's about authentically finding out what would be the gift that they want to bring in when they come to the classroom. They might just want to come and sit and watch, right? In terms of staff burnout, I think it's a shift in thinking that we have to make from, oh, this is going to be more work having this person here because I'm going to have to direct them to do things. If we set it up in a way that is through relationship, that we have these conversations ahead of time, that people know why they're coming, that authentic purpose. I'm going to spend some time with the children. I might be doing an art activity, or, oh, I want to come and read some stories, whatever that is. It shouldn't be more work for the staff, right? And so from a leadership perspective, it's that sharing that understanding, like coming to a shared understanding with them about, this is us building our community classroom. This person can add energy to our classroom, can add insight, can add more love. It builds a broader sense of strength for us as a community. It shouldn't add more work. But I think you're right. When we're burnt out or we're stretched too thin, it happens. We did this great workshop last night with the Devereux Institute we're doing through our webinar series. And she asked the group, when your cup is empty and you don't have anything else to pour out, how do you react to the world around you? So how do you react when you're in your program? And everybody was like grumpy, snappy, irritable. So we, become more aware of those things for ourselves. And then I think we as leaders help our staff and our teams around us to shift that to finding the joy in it. What is the joy that this person's going to bring? And how are they going to support what we're doing versus how are they coming in to do this and we're going to have to supervise them? And what if they say something inappropriate? And, what if their little child starts freaking out because grandma's there? Like all those what ifs, right? Like what's the joy? What's the bonus? What's the add-in to having this person come and be a part of our community? I think that's the way to go with it.
I think community genuinely does fill cups. And I think I'm saying that as someone who's pretty introverted. I think I get a lot of my energy from also being alone. But when community is around me, I also feel very energized in that way. And I do feel that sense of my cup is being filled right now. I'm getting love, I'm getting laughter, and just lots of respect. And I think it can be underestimated how beneficial community is. I think especially for staff, inviting people in and being a part of the space can actually be very beneficial to them and their burnout.
Well, and you have to shift gears. For me, I'm like a creature of routine. And I'm also an introvert, surprisingly. Oh, you want us to go for a walk? Like that's a shift in my routine. Okay, I got to shift my mind. But when the person comes into the classroom and does drumming and I'm thinking, this is like something new, something different, it's extra. They come in and then you're like energized because it's like it shifts your brain. Sometimes our burnout is just because we're stuck in this loopy routine.
Yes.
And sometimes extending and asking our community to hold us up, to add energy to our classroom, that's what we need to shake all that excess stress, right? To shake it up and move it out of our systems.
I'm exactly the same. I get so grumpy thinking about someone changing my routine, but actually that is what I need so that I'm not grumpy. Well, I only have one final question for you, and it's about barriers to connecting with community, which we have kind of alluded to. We have, people are burnt out, maybe there's enough time, but are there any other barriers that we didn't discuss when it comes to connecting with community, and how do we approach those barriers?
I think the biggest barrier is kind of what you said, our own reluctance to move away from our patterns or way of being in the moment. And I think it's the state of the world right now. Everybody is kind of tense, right?
Yes.
And that tension is holding people in place, holding us in a place of status quo, trying to keep not necessarily control, but just want to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the biggest barrier for continuing to grow community because people are stuck in our places. We're also maybe not as open to relationships and building trust and building connection. And I think that's going to be the hard challenge because we need those connections. We need each other. I'm going to share with you, I just got this. So
Brene Brown, Strong Ground.
So it's a new book from the Dare to Lead series. Just started reading it and this really struck me this morning. And she says, the transformations we need right now must drive deep collaboration, deep thinking, and deep connection. We're going to need leaders with the capacity for tough and productive conversation. We need a sense of discerning urgency driven by smart prioritization, trust-building skills, strategic risk-taking, paradoxical thinking, pattern recognition, meaning-making, situational and anticipatory awareness in the market served, agility, tenacity, and the humility and confidence to unlearn and relearn systems and symphonic thinking that deliver operational excellence, and it goes on, and the courage to lead people in a way that honors and protects the wisdom of human spirit. I know it's a long quote, but the reason I really love that is because she's talking about continuing to stretch ourselves outside of the comfort zone to build those relationships, to like stretch into those relationships and make those connections and continue to build our communities through those relationships, because without them, without each other, we're just going to continue on in these little places. And I think especially right now in the way the world is and the way our childcare systems are, we have so many great opportunities, right, to raise children who are kind and wise and thoughtful and give back. And I think it's all in how we build those relationships with people and hold each other up.
And we need them now more than ever when you're talking about, the state of the world. And I appreciate how Brene Brown was even talking about the spirit. I think right now, everyone is very tense, and it feels like maybe our spirits are feeling a bit broken just, with everything that we're consuming and all the things happening. And I think the relationships and the community are the exact things that will keep our spirits together. And really just that collaboration, like she was saying, is so needed right now. It's actually, I think, the thing that's going to get us through all of these times.
She does point that out specifically, that there's no amount of AI or technology or capitalist consumerism that's going to save us. What's going to save us is those relationships we build. What's going to keep us thriving as humans is the relationships we build with each other.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for being here today. I really appreciate all of the wisdom that you've shared. You've just been incredible and taught us so much. So truly, thank you for everything that you do. Thank you all for listening and supporting our Leaders of Inclusive Childcare podcast series. If you haven't already, please check out our resources and our courses on the BC Professional Development Hub. And thank you for all you do. Take care.